Well, hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Brian Jacks. I'm an Associate State Director with AARP Virginia. That's AARP's state office, which is housed in Richmond. I happen to work out of my home in Bedford County and oversee a component of community outreach, which is considered the southwest portion of the state. Those of you that are familiar with Virginia recognize that the county of Bedford is not always considered southwest because most folks living in Abingdon or Wytheville or Big Stone Gap consider that portion of the state to be very different than central Bedford County or Lynchburg area. But my part of the state contains all of those counties. And today I'm very excited to be sharing with you a presentation, question and answer session, an interview with the director of Bedford Ride, a program that AARP has been committed to and a part of for about 2 decades. I'm thankful that we have the program director, Linda Brake, with us today. She's someone who has worked in the area of livability, which is one of AARP's key issues for many, many years. Those of you that are somewhat familiar with AARP programs might know about Age-Friendly Network or our livability issues, which are geared towards helping communities prepare for the challenges of aging, an aging population, and the social domains of age-friendly, which include transportation, which we'll be talking about today, but also include aspects of public safety, gathering spaces or interconnectedness. Certainly, a community needs to have a focus on health in general, safety, those types of things. But I want to let you know that today we'll be primarily focusing on transportation, which impacts whether a person can live safely and independently at home, or if their choices are in some ways contained to a smaller field or array of options. Anyway, we're glad that you're here today and going to be participating with us. I encourage you to use the chat box for comments or ideas or something, even just giving encouragement to our presenters. At the same time, if you would, please put all questions in the Q&A box. That will help us at the end of the presentation to make sure that we're answering any questions or giving you insight of which you are requesting. With that, I would like to introduce Linda Brake, the program director for Bedford Ride. Linda brings 20 years of experience and a deep commitment to community service as the program director. With a focus on improving transportation access, Linda is dedicated to helping Bedford's residents access medical care. Prior to joining Bedford Ride, Linda worked in the life insurance industry, where she excelled in meeting clients' needs and providing security for families. Her skills in building community partnerships and problem solving make her a valuable asset to the team. Linda is known for her enthusiasm and dedication, whether organizing local events, advocating for transportation solutions, or connecting with community members. At Bedford Ride, she manages to ensure the program has the necessary resources to operate effectively. Linda, thanks for being with us today.
Well, thank you for having me, Brian. It's definitely a pleasure, and it's good to see you on screen and in person. Bedford Ride is a program of the Central Virginia Alliance for Community Living, and it started 20 years ago. Actually, this September is our 23rd year, and we are doing this because people needed access to medical care, and that came through a health needs assessment done by Centra and Carillion back in the late 90s. And transportation was the biggest issue for Bedford County and the town of Bedford. So people were using 911 emergency services to access medical care. So the foundations, Centra and Carillion, the Virginia Healthcare Foundation, and of course the Bedford Community Health Foundation. There was a grassroots effort to start a volunteer non-emergency medical transportation program, and thus Bedford Ride was born. And so the first transportation started back in September 2001, and it grew within the first year. So it started in the town of Bedford, and then we brought on more volunteer communities throughout the county, because the county's a very large county, Bedford is. And we were able to expand within the first year to cover the entire county. So giving people access, and of course, air vehicles, we get air vans through the Department of Rail and Public Transportation. We have to raise the local match, which is 20%, and then the grant covers 80% of the cost of the van. And we currently have 20 of those now that serve the county. But it's a growing demand for service, especially in an area that has no other public transportation options. We do now have the Otter bus, which it complements Bedford Ride. It's a fixed route that goes around the town of Bedford, but it doesn't cover folks living out in the county. So we provide transportation to medical appointments in Roanoke, Salem, Lynchburg, and of course in Bedford, and also into Franklin County, because over in the Westlake area has now established a medical community there. So we're here to help. And we always need more volunteers, because there's a huge demand for service. And all of their drivers are vetted volunteers, and they're always needed. You never have enough volunteers to cover everything. You never do. And most nonprofits, they'll say the same thing. You never have enough hands to get the work done. But volunteering for our program, you're providing access to medical care for someone who does not drive and lives alone, or doesn't have any support for a ride.
Can I
And
just, I don't mean to
no, go ahead.
interrupt. You're doing a great job, and I appreciate what you're sharing. So in reality, what I think my understanding is that this is truly an example of neighbors helping neighbors. That these are
Absolutely.
individuals, that most of your volunteers, the wide majority, are Bedford residents themselves,
Mhm.
and that they are recognize the need of other individuals in the community. And because they have the physical ability and, driver's license, even a vehicle, but they're driving, in most cases, your vehicles, correct?
Correct.
That these are individuals who are saying, you know what, I could give a little bit of my time to make sure that others can get to the medical appointments that they need. And that it really is neighbors helping neighbors, correct?
That is exactly right. And there we have pockets of volunteers, like in Manita and Huddleston, Forest, Good area, Big Island, Montvale. So you're going to be driving your neighbors, using your vehicle, air gas, and air insurance. You're providing the time, which is a very important gift to give to a nonprofit, is your time.
Wonderful. And I'm so thankful that I don't mean to be driving it in one direction or another.
No.
Pun intended, I guess. But I'm thankful that you have brought a volunteer today, as I have. Pam Chisholm is with AARP Virginia. She's kind of fielding the questions and making sure we don't miss anything. You've brought Libby. Is this a good time for Libby to share a little
Sure,
bit of
yes,
volunteer experience?
absolutely.
Just again to demonstrate, Libby, how you have engaged with Bedford Ride, I guess first as a staff member, and or in some way working with the program, and then now as a volunteer.
And she needs to unmute.
Libby, if you're able to unmute, there we go.
There you go.
Oh, you clicked
Whoops.
it back on. Great. Libby, could you share a little bit about your history with the program? We can see and hear you at this point.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Libby Dixon, and I am pleased to say that I am part of a program that I'm proud of. I volunteered before I was fortunate enough to get employed by Bedford Ride. I worked for 10 years and then retired, and now I'm volunteering driving again. I can't put in words. I was not raised in Bedford. I had no idea this program even existed until I came to work at Bedford Ride. And it just amazed me to what these volunteers give. You can imagine if you were given the diagnosis of cancer and you had to go every day for 6 and 7 weeks to Lynchburg or Roanoke for radiation. Okay, you may have family members, but not enough. Well, thank goodness there is Bedford Ride that can offer that kind of transportation. And that takes a worry off of you not having to worry about how am I going to do this? So that and among other things that we offer to doctor's appointments, which are important too. All of it is important. And I always think, what would people do without Bedford Ride? I don't want to think because it's too scary to think about what these people would do. The dialysis group that go 3 times a week, and that's life. I mean, that is their life. They can't do without it. So you're helping people survive. You're helping people live. So that's the part that makes me proud to be a volunteer. One of the things, but that is makes me happy to be able to help my fellow neighbor or someone in the community, because we all know things can change very fast, and we never know when we may be in a situation where we may need that.
Absolutely. And honestly, Libby, I just really appreciate your sense of dedication and commitment, saying, hey, I enjoyed working for the organization. I knew I was making a difference. And when I retired from that, it didn't stop me. In reality, I said, I'm doing it on my own time because you see the impact. If I might just kind of cue you up for a little bit later in the program, if there's a story that you could share of just one person, certainly don't mention any names on this webinar, but a person that you got to interact with, care for, provide services to, who you can, display how much of an impact it made in that person's life. I'm going to give you that opportunity in a few minutes, but I just want to kind of get you thinking about who might you share, where were they going, what was the scenario around their situation, and how impactful Bedford Ride was to them. Linda,
Okay.
I'm going to turn it back over to you. Again, I know you've got a few things to share, and I do have some questions for you, but it looks like you have a few more slides to go through, so I want to give you that opportunity.
Yes, and it is more than just a ride.
Yes.
It's not just somebody coming to get you. It's somebody that cares and shares, because there a lot of these folks that we transport live alone. It's the only human contact that they have. So when you have a bright, smiling volunteer come to pick you up, and of course, all of our volunteers sign a confidentiality statement that anything shared would not be shared with anyone else. It makes them feel good. It makes them feel safe, especially going to Roanoke and Carillion and all their medical buildings up there at Riverside. It's very confusing for older people to navigate all through that. And especially if they're on a walker or a cane or in a wheelchair. And we also have we serve veterans. We take them to the Salem VA. But to drive for our program, it's just some simple requirements is to have a Virginia driver's license in good standing. And the reason why it needs to be a Virginia driver's license is that we cannot check an out-of-state license. So we've run into that a little bit at the lake when someone has a second home out there, but they live in Pennsylvania or another state, but want to volunteer, and it's like, well, you need to have a Virginia license. And it's got to be in good standing, which means no negative points. We run a criminal background check on everyone. And also, we do urine drug screenings up at Central Bedford Memorial Hospital lab. And we pay for all of the checks. So there's no cost to the volunteer. And also to have a smiling face, because you need to be, it has to be a kind and compassionate person. And I thank God that we have so many of them in our community, because they're kind, they're compassionate, they see a need, and they take care of it. It's just it's a beautiful program. I've been here for a little over 20 years, the longest I've been anywhere in my life, and it makes a difference for me to wake up every morning and try and make my community a better place.
Oh,
And
I love that.
it's not a job. It's making my community a better place to live and to help ease the suffering of others.
Oh, I have to break in and just say thank you for sharing that at a heart level. And, it is important to accentuate that aspect of health that may otherwise go unnoticed, which is the idea of friendship and connection. As Libby is saying, these are individuals who may be going to dialysis 3 times a week and getting the same person or the same individuals week after week, stopping in, helping pick them up, take them there. And that conversation must be rich. And during a time in a person's life where care, empathy, a sense of, encouragement to press on has got to be almost as impactful in that person's health as the actual medical treatment.
It is.
Yeah. That's essential. Libby. Go ahead, Linda.
Go ahead. No, go, Libby.
I was just going to say, Libby, can you give us, one story of possibly someone that, you experienced walking through life, a challenging situation with that, was really impactful and made a difference?
I certainly can. I have a young lady that we take to, I say we, I have to stop that from being employed there. I volunteer taking her to dialysis once a week. She is a remarkable lady. She is a double amputee. She has other appointments along with having to go to dialysis. And she is so appreciative and so, I don't know, I call her my hero because she just has such a positive attitude for what she is going through. And you have to yourself, and as I've said before, it makes you humble. It makes you really humble to think that they are going through all of this, yet they are so grateful for what you're doing for them. And all I'm doing is driving her somewhere, but you are there for them.
It's not all that you're doing is driving. You are making a huge difference by caring, by interacting, by having, asking questions at a heartfelt level. And again, I hope you don't feel like I'm yelling at you. I'm just so pleased and encouraged. I have to point out that you are making a heartfelt impact in that person's life. And it's not just, from A to B with tires on the ground. You are delighting that person on a regular basis.
As-
What a blessing.
As they are me. I
Yes.
feel like I am just as blessed, and I have a very strong belief in we are supposed to help our neighbors.
Yes.
And if people would we're not asking for a lot. You could do a day a week, a day a month. If you would just give some of your time, you will be so blessed by knowing and meeting these people. You learn what they go through, and it makes you a better person. It really does. It makes you a better person.
I assume it makes you enables one to count their blessings, a sense of, wow, I'm
Yes.
thankful for the situation that I'm in. I can be content in the challenges of life that, again, we're all facing at a different level, but helping put things into perspective, I assume. Linda, I don't mean to continue on.
No,
finish
you're
your
fine.
thoughts.
We're good. We're good.
Great.
And of course, you volunteer when you have time, whether it's an hour a day, 1 day a week, once a month. It all helps. It all adds up, and it makes a difference in someone's life. And you never know when you may be on the receiving end. And I will share a story. Um, there's so many, and I know we don't have all day, but there was this lady that she drove herself. She lived alone. Well, she suffered a stroke, and she lost her ability to drive. So, and she can only she's only functioning on one side of her body, and so who takes her to her medical appointments? We do. Who takes her food? She's one of the individuals that is we register to get home delivered food from. We do that through Christian Ministries. It's on referral, and they prepare food boxes. That's food that's easy for her to prepare since she has limited ability, but she is still living independently at her home, and she gets meals through through the area agency on aging. So we are giving her the resources to be able to live in her home, because there's no place like home. No one wants to go to assisted living and just be a castaway, especially when you have no family. So she's living her best life at home by services we're able to provide her.
What an impact. That is critical. And yes, as you think about institutional care versus remaining in home, AARP is very much attempting to help people age in place, age in their community. And to do that, it requires a network of care and a care plan and a sense of, how can I do this safely? Obviously, that's a key component to making those decisions. And I'm so thankful for Bedford Ride's piece of the puzzle. That's one piece, making sure that if I have a non-emergency medical appointment that I need to get to and I can't drive, okay, here's one really instrumental process for getting there, a way to do that. Is there, I should ask in terms of like age limit or cost, can you just speak to that for a moment, and then I'll let you get to your next slide?
Age limit for clients, for riders?
For riders is what I was thinking, and then
okay.
Costs incurred by the riders.
Okay, with Bedford Ride, we serve all ages, under 60 as well as over 60. And it's on a sliding fee scale. So there's an assessment done for each client, which will determine whether or not they would be any cost. but when I say cost, that cost is very, very modest. It does not even cover the cost of the ride. But we have, and I need to share another story. This goes,
Please, we have time. Yes.
this lady went on a medical ride to Lynchburg, and this was many, many years ago. And she gave the volunteer, it was 78 cents. That's all she had, but she wanted to contribute towards her ride. And I've never forgotten that. And she did not have very much means, but she wanted to contribute to her ride because that was important to her. And but the majority of the individuals using our service pay nothing. It's absorbed into the program, which is important, that this program is supported, because a lot of people can't afford transportation. If you had to call an Uber to go to Lynchburg, or it'd probably cost you $100.
Right, right.
Um,
And again, I just want to say that today on this webinar, it's not something that we can do to, do any kind of fundraising or anything, but I do want to state there are many different organizations, charitable organizations, faith-based groups that are regularly supporting Bedford Ride. And again, a showcase of the strength of the community. And I think that's absolutely wonderful.
Yes, and not only is it religious organizations, but civic groups, businesses, individuals, and also the county of Bedford. I applied for jurisdictional funding because it helps them, because if we're not taking these people, then they're going to have to take them through EMS. So they understand the importance of this program, because that is how this program started. All of their emergency services were being tied up, picking people up and taking them to the ER.
Amazing.
So they understand the need, and they've always been very supportive of our program, and we just truly appreciate them, because they've been a community partner from the very beginning.
And I would venture to say that it's helped individuals remain in the county. A sense of, otherwise moving into a institutional care, perhaps, outside of the county, one of these big institutions. For folks that don't have an advocate, that can be very challenging, and sense of receiving what types of care, but even leaving. So I'm glad to hear, be reminded of the fact that the county itself is supporting this work.
Yes, and this next slide, this is ends their 2023 fiscal year, because that starts October 1. We'll be closing out this fiscal year at the end of next month. But we provided 2,500 rides and served 119 unduplicated individuals, and we're on track to surpass this for this year. So I just wanted to give a breakdown of the types of transportation to clinics and dialysis and dental, and of course for doctors and specialists living in Bedford, you're either going to have to go to Roanoke, Salem, or Lynchburg to see a specialist, because we just don't have them here. We have primary care doctors, but that's about it. So we do a lot of work, and I've never, we have the most amazing volunteers, and they're all over the county, and it just always works. It's, when you think, it's like, well, okay, how are we going to get all this done? It always works.
Well, Linda, I have to interrupt you and say it works because of leadership and of your effort coordinating, because it would not work if it was just a fly-by-night organization that didn't know how to put things together, didn't know how to reach out to the community, to get the word out, didn't know how to screen volunteers in a way that ensured the safety for the riders. You're doing it, Linda. And I appreciate your graciousness in saying it always works. But here, I just want to put a little bit of a spotlight on you and say,
Well,
thank you.
thank you.
Thank you for being determined, dedicated, giving, 2 decades worth of time and experience to helping this program be successful, to continue meeting this intense need. And I hope, even thinking about what's the next step in the future longevity of planning for, what's next. And we'll get to that in a minute, but just want to say thank you.
Oh, well, thanks, Brian. You're very kind, but it takes a team, and we have the finest team. And yes, all teams need a leader, but there's no I in team. So they do such a great job, and our coordinator, Vicky, she does such a wonderful job doing the intake and setting the rides up and working with the volunteers and getting the rides covered. And of course, as you mentioned earlier, it is Neighbors Helping Neighbors. It's on your pamphlet. It's you're literally helping your neighbor access medical care, and how sharing your time helps older adults and with disabilities. If these folks didn't have someone to take them, they're just going to sit at home and deteriorate. And unfortunately, in some other areas, I've been contacted, well, how can we start this in my county? You have to start a grassroots program. You got to get the right people at the table. And it takes time. It was like 2 years of planning before Bedford Ride got off the ground. And you just have to get the right people at the table, and everybody's, your stakeholders. I mean, and it's all about your community. Everybody wants to live in a community that's well taken care of. You don't want it, and it can happen, but it takes a lot of work to do it.
Well said.
Now, I'm open for any questions.
Great. Well, one of the questions that's come up is, are there any common misperceptions, things that individuals think, well, hey, Bedford Ride, that probably is this, or probably works in this way. Possibly, for instance, individuals, driving people in their own cars. I would think that might be a misconception, but you tell me, what are some things that are commonly misunderstood or misunderstood about the Bedford Ride program?
Well, we have one volunteer that prefers to drive her own car, which it's fine, but she has to provide us with certain insurance limits. It's a higher standard of insurance to do that, which she does. She has the coverage for it. But we prefer people, drive their vehicles. They're, new vans, newer vans. And, when you're driving, suppose there's an accident or something. I mean, it's all on their insurance. It's not on the volunteer. But of course, if somebody was speeding, that you own that ticket is yours. We don't pay speeding tickets, but anyway, but yes, we have one volunteer that drives her car, and when I'm interviewing a potential volunteer, I just let them know, especially, if they're transporting a dialysis patient and it doesn't happen. It's probably happened 3 times since I've been here in 20 years. But when they come off of dialysis, sometimes they start bleeding. And I personally would not want that in my personal vehicle, even though if it happens in theirs, then you have to get it professionally cleaned. But it's just always better if you drive using their vehicle.
Great, that makes sense. And that was one of the misconceptions that I think people could have. Is there anything else that people think, oh, I'm guessing this is how it works, but it really doesn't? Anything else that comes up
Oh,
in
yes.
public?
A lot of people think that we're a state agency, that
Ah,
we get all the state and federal money, and Bedford Rod gets none of that. We are not state or federally funded. The only funding we get is through the DRPT, Department of Rail and Public Transportation. When Ken Young, your transportation director, writes that grant, um, that's the extent of our state federal relationship. Um, but it's we're not funded. We don't get Older Americans Act money or any of that. We're independently funded.
like you said, it's a community stepping up to meet a need in a big way. Yeah, it doesn't
Yes.
surprise me that you're receiving phone calls and inquiries from other counties in Virginia and really across the United States asking, how in the world could we do something like this? Because really recognizing the impact.
Mhm. And I'll share this. Before I even came to work for Bedford Rod, I used to see the vehicles around town, and I thought the same exact thing. I said, it must be a state,
Right.
a state program. But little did I know it's like, wow. And when I started back in 2004, March of 2004, it was like, wow, what it was just the most amazing thing. Learning the roads, learning Bedford, um, and there's still roads that I don't know, but there's a map, and we'll find you. And of
Well,
course, we GPS nowadays makes it a little easier.
I was just going to say that there are a lot of parts of Bedford County that GPS does not work. So I like your historical perspective of take a map. I think that's
Yeah,
nice.
yeah, you gotta look at a map. And I have GPS in my vehicle, but I still like to see a map before I go to new territories.
Agreed. I want to make sure that if Pam or Libby has anything else to say that we give a chance. But I do want to ask, what are the future goals for Bedford Ride? So when you think about, as you said, this fiscal year is wrapping up, you expect that next year we'll have even more rides as a result of, again, probably getting the word out, more people sharing it with others, even the needs increasing. But when you think about future goals, what are, maybe the top 2 or 3 things that you have in store for 2025?
Well, what I would like to see, but it then again, it all determines on volunteers. A lot of people have a need to go to the get a haircut, to do things, other non-medical things, um, trips, and we just don't have the manpower to do that. And one day I would love to be able to take someone to a funeral. Somebody needs to go to a funeral. We've had that come up over the years. Um, and just the typical things, or need a ride to the train station
Mm-hmm.
just to be dropped off, and it could somebody that needs a wheelchair accessible van, um, or to the airport.
Yes. Well,
Um,
I appreciate you mentioning those things because as we've briefly touched on at the top of the call, those non-medical components, which as you're mentioning to the train station or the airport, it might be to get a chance to visit their daughter for
Mhm.
a week and to be cared for and have that interaction and connection, and even to have the daughter check on the health of mom or grandma, to get a sense of, hey, is my grandfather declining? And so by facilitating some of those non-medical touch points really can make a big impact on the medical health and wellness of these members of our community. So I
Yes.
appreciate you pointing out the fact that
Mhm.
the line is kind of blurred, even though right now says, hey, we're focused on the non-emergency medical,
Mhm.
but in reality, our whole lives and what we're doing whether that be exercising or grieving well or connecting with friends or family or other social engagement, does all make an impact on our overall health.
It does. And, some people want to know, well, can I go to the Y 3 times a week? Well, I would love to do that if I had the manpower. And yes, exercise is important. And, but it's all about resources. And, we have to use those resources for the medical. But if we had more resources, we could do more. It's all based on resources.
Yep. Well, it sounds like you're doing a good job of prioritizing things and at the same time, not being afraid to try to push the limits. And that's part of the reason that we're having this call today, to make sure that if individuals are here now or listen to the recording, have gotten a flavor for what's needed, and also a sense of the benefit that a volunteer would gain from doing it. We want to make sure that we're showcasing a clear path for individuals to volunteer. So, Linda, if you would have a chance to walk through this next slide. I will say that we've answered all the questions, including those about funding, and share what the next steps would be for an individual who wants to raise their hand and join the team.
Join the team, yes. They can call us at our office, 540-587-3215, to learn more about our program, or they can just schedule to come in the office if they want to talk more about it. That's perfect too. They can visit our website. We have that out there, and just click on the volunteer button, and it'll ask you for your name and your contact information. And then I'll get an email, and then I'll call them. Or you can email us at brod@cvcl.org. And you can also follow us on Facebook. We have a very big charity event coming up, the Smith Mountain Lake Charity Home Tour. We're one of the 8 charities. This is our 3rd year, and it's one of our biggest fundraisers. So we're gearing up for that. That's coming up quick. We're hosting the Graham Home, and of course that's all volunteer as well. So we're excited about that, and very blessed to have been one of the chosen charities, because it's like over 2,000 people come through your house. I don't think I'd want 2,000 people coming through my house, but
Understood.
but it's the homeowners that put their homes up for charity, and of course the Charity Home Tour Board that steers the whole event. And that's an amazing another amazing group of people.
Excellent. Well, you're just promoting again the idea of neighbors helping neighbors in all different ways. Each of us can give in some way, shape, or form. And I certainly appreciate the way that you're managing a program that is impacting so many. Linda and Libby, thanks for being on today's webinar program. I believe that we accomplished what we needed to, and again, showcasing the fact that AARP cares about livability. We have volunteers in most of the counties across Virginia, but nowhere near the transportation offerings that Bedford Ride offers right here in Bedford. Thanks for being attuned to the needs of our community and stepping up to meet the challenge. I applaud.
We have something in the question and answer. I don't know.
It was in reference to funding, and I felt like that we adequately answered that question in the course of your comments. It was put in early.
Okay.
And so I believe that we've accomplished what we set out to do, unless there's any closing comments needed from anyone.
I would just like to thank AARP Virginia for putting this together. And Libby, thank you so much for joining me.
Linda does.
Pam has raised her hand. Libby,
I just wanted to say, okay, I just want to say to Linda and Libby that program is so heartfelt. It just made me feel so good inside of what you're doing, because I'm actually helping a friend who had a stroke and she can't drive because she can't use one side of her body at this point. But I think it's so good because you feel so alone when you can't do things that you've been used to doing. And it just made me feel really warm inside. It is. I mean, I think you're just two wonderful people to think about people like that. And that's what I wanted to say. This
Oh,
was
thank you.
really, I mean, really nice.
Thank you.
I'm guessing that Linda suggests that she works with a lot of angels, individuals who are, caring for others above themselves and trying to be a protector in our community. So, well, with
Thank you.
that, I just will say thank you all for participating today. Thanks for tuning in or watching the recorded program. We'll continue to raise up Bedford Ride as a role model organization, helping to increase the age friendliness of communities, at least here in Bedford County. And I appreciate the fact, Linda, that you also serve to answer the question or call from other localities who might be interested in doing something similar. With
Thanks,
that, I'll
Brian.
close out today's program, thanking everyone and wishing you the very best as the week continues.
Thank you,
Goodbye.
Brian.
You're welcome. Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.